Hello everyone, this is TipTopMTG, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some predictions I have for Magic's upcoming set, Modern Horizons 2. The sequel to the somewhat controversial set is coming out just around the corner, and I have some wild and crazy predictions that are most likely not coming, but hey, it's fun to speculate. Now, this video was always planned to come out today. However, last Thursday we got a lot of information about the set, and so I did have to adapt some of these predictions to kind of incorporate that new knowledge and remove some that were either confirmed or denied or all that. So keep that in mind. These predictions are with the knowledge of what was announced last week. Either way, let's jump into this. Well, Modern Horizons has featured lots of random mechanics, at least the first set, and we've already seen some of them with Modern Horizons 2. It didn't really have a new mechanic, and it did have some overarching themes like Changeling and Snow. So while, it didn't have a new theme necessarily, it had some overarching ones. And so what I think we're going to do is we're going to see some overarching themes again, and I think we're going to see the return of Tribal. Back before Modern Horizons, it seems like we were never, or at least for a while, we were never going to see the return of Snow, but it happened. And while it has been stated that they don't like Tribal because of the precedent it sets, for instance, why is this card Tribal and this card not, doing it in Modern Horizons 2 could make a lot of sense. It doesn't imply anything for the future and adds some new cards to a type that doesn't really get any attention and players have been kind of asking for. So I feel like, while we had the super type of Snow in Modern Horizons 1, it could make a lot of sense to see Tribal. Like I was explaining, they worry about putting in a standard because of the precedent it sets, but nothing about Modern Horizons sets a precedent. That's kind of the whole point. There are these gimmicky cards that do these gimmicky things, and so maybe we see that once again. And so I think that could be really, really interesting, and maybe that does lead to Tribal getting more support. For instance, we saw Snow in Modern Horizons, and then saw its return in Keldheim, but it also doesn't mean, hey, we are going to see that, and I think that is one of the beauties of Modern Horizons is the fact that you don't have to, you can't really look at Modern Horizons and say, hey, this is implying what the future will look like. Alright, well, not totally related to Modern Horizons 2, its and Time Spiral Remastered's old frame treatment, I think, will become common for non-standard products, celebrating the fact that these products affect older formats even more. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that we've now seen this old border on three things. We've seen it on Time Spiral Remastered, we've seen it on Modern Horizons 2, and we've seen it on a random promo. And you know what? Those are the products that are non-standard. And originally, this prediction said we're going to see it in every set. But then I went back and thought about it. Does that make a lot of sense? And I'm like, no, standard is the introductory product. A lot of the time, the older formats are for those more veteran players. And you know what kind of players are going to appreciate those frames even more? The veteran ones. So I think it makes a lot of sense that every single non-standard product, or at least most of them, has those frames. And maybe we do end up seeing some in collector boosters for standard products, or maybe the commander products. I just feel like it's going to be a trend we see a lot as people have been requesting these for a while. Of course, things are developed way out in the past. So for instance, Time Spiral Remastered, they had the old frames and they were pretty successful, except for the fact that no one can get their hands on them. But it's not like they saw that and said, okay, let's do this with Modern Horizons 2. That's not what happened. They were both complete sets before anyone saw either of them. And so I feel like going into the future, these next couple sets, we're going to see a lot of it. And we might see a couple sets without it, and then we'll go back to it being a pretty constant thing. Either way, let's talk about some reprints. I think we're going to see some more iconic cards reprinted, and it will take center stage when it comes to changes for Modern. We've already seen Counterspell, and know that there is a whole slot dedicated to reprints that are new to Modern, which is the major step above what Modern Horizons 1 did. Modern Horizons 1 kind of focused on being a premier set, kind of like a standard set, that just had the power level of Modern. However, it didn't focus so much on adding in some older cards. So I think that we're going to see that a little bit more, and I think that's maybe not even a prediction at this point. The fact that there's a whole slot to it means there are going to be more of them. However, I think that when we look at the new cards, a lot of them are going to be fun and wacky, but maybe not the most influential things in the game, or in the set, I should say. And instead, that will come with the reprints, which will allow them to kind of affect Modern with cards that already exist. Now, you could argue that they won't do that because it doesn't make them as much money. For instance, if they were to add, and I'm not saying they ever would do this, if they were to add Demonic Tutor to Modern, which they would not, it would not make them as much money because the chase card for Modern becomes Demonic Tutor. But Modern Horizons 2 isn't the only way to get that. A lot of people have a Demonic Tutor, or maybe not a lot, but more people have a Demonic Tutor than a new card that is printed. So there is some like economic reasons why they wouldn't do it. It just feels like that's how they're setting it up. Either way, next let's talk about legendary creatures. I think there's going to be more than normal, but I don't know if I can really call this a prediction. It feels like every set has a legendary theme, except there's no cards that actually care about it. They just have more of them because Commander is the most popular format. But I do think we are going to see more legendary creatures than normal, and they're going to be featuring characters we haven't seen in a while. There's a character you were hoping was going to be in Commander Legends. There's a chance they're in here. And again, that's because Modern Horizons 2 is very much, if it's anything like Modern Horizons 1, focused at those more veteran players who are going to recognize older characters that don't get cards or understand more complex things. So I expect a lot of creatures that maybe don't have cards or have like one really old card to get some new ones here. Alright, I think we're going to see at least one Modal Double Face card in Modern Horizons 2. It's a set where they can take a mechanic and go do something with it with just one or two cards. There is really not another set they can do that. If they want to do sagas, at least so far, they've had to do a bunch of them in the set. But for all we know, Urza's Saga is the only saga in Modern Horizons 2. And I think that leads to a lot of interesting design potential. And so I really, really, really hope we get to see at least one Modal Double Face card. Why? Because we've only ever seen Modal Double Face cards in standard sets, which means they have to be confined to the power level and complexity of standard. Now imagine a Modal Double Face card with the power level and complexity of modern. That seems pretty good, and I feel like it could be really, really interesting to see what they can do. For instance, all sagas up until Urza's Saga have been in the context of standard, meaning they've been relatively simple and not overly powerful. However, Urza's Saga feels like a very complex card that does very interesting things, and it gets me really excited for the set, so I hope we get to see the same thing for Modal Double Face cards. Of course, those are much newer than sagas, so it is kind of unlikely that it will happen. However, you do have to remember, this is coming out around the same time as all these Modal Double Face cards. It would be a great time to add them in. This prediction's it's very simple. I think we're going to see the other half of the Horizon lands. In Modern Horizons 1, we saw Fiery Islet, Nurturing Peatland, Silent Clearing, Sunbaked Canyon, and Waterlogged Grove. They were all lands that you could tap, pay a life, and add one of the two colors that they were, and then you could pay one and tap and sack it to draw a card. So I think we're going to see those just in the other colors, the other 5, which could give you some hints into the fact that maybe they are ally colored pairs, as those were obviously the enemy color ones. So maybe we see a little bit more ally based ones in this set. Either way, let's talk about Commander. So while it's not a Commander set, many of the cards are going to work well in Commander. I don't really think this is much of a prediction more than a, hey, this is going to happen, and it goes a lot with my legendary creatures thing, but this is more talking about the individual cards. Because Commander's a lot more of a casual format, I think there are going to be a lot of cards that are fun in Modern Horizons, because that's kind of how I would describe Modern Horizons, is fun. There's a lot of weird, wacky, fun cards that aren't necessarily the most powerful things in the world. Some of them are. But I think because of that, Commander is going to see an influx of both fun and powerful cards. And so you're going to be able to buy a box of Modern Horizons and or Modern Horizons 2, I should say, and be able to use a lot of those cards in Commander as relatively good cards. Alright, next let's talk about Oko. I think we will see him as a return, and it will be in the form of a shape-shifting half-creature, half-planeswalker. So this is a little bit based on a leak. I'm not going to say anything. It has nothing to do with specifically a character, and I don't think there's any way you could jump from this to the leak, but this is somewhat based on that. And it's an interesting effect that I don't want to spoil it because people don't like leaks. If you want to know, I guess you can leave a comment, and I'll let you guys know in the comments, or I might pin it, or I won't pin it. I'll see. If you guys want to know, leave it in the comments. I will talk about it. Of course, the leak was never confirmed. However, I thought it was a really interesting idea, and I thought, oh, how could this be a card? Who would it fit? And Oko is a shapeshifter, and it's a really interesting idea. I think Oko will have a lot of negative feedback coming back, just because people, the one Oko we got, or I guess we got two. One was a Planeswalker deck, Commander, Planeswalker. The one we got was overly powerful and was banned in basically everything, and so I think people are going to be apprehensive. I don't think he's going to be an amazing Planeswalker, but I do think we will see an Oko. I think colorless is going to be a theme, and we're going to see lots of support for it. This could be supported by Urza's Saga. Of course, that could just be a one-off card. Modern Horizon 1 did a lot of that. However, it is something that, again, is a little harder to do in Standard, so maybe they can do that in the Modern Horizons 2 set. Then I think it'd be great to go see a more whimsical theme. I did a little bit of a poll on this for Strixhaven, where I basically asked, did you like the more whimsical tone of Strixhaven? And my options were like, yes, I liked it. I like it occasionally. I didn't like it. I hate it, or something along those lines. And it turns out most people actually like the more whimsical theme. And I have to agree, a lot of the time, things like Urza's Saga, which is a very tongue-in-cheek joke about the set, but it's also a saga that's also an Urza's. I think that works really well, and I hope we see more humor like that. I'm not a huge fan of Pop Quiz or whatever, where it's literally a person popping bubbles or whatever. But I like the kind of meta jokes, and so I think Modern Horizons 2 will be full of that. And then last, I think it's going to be a great set from a limited perspective, and even one that introduces a lot of fun new cards, but I think it will go on to mess up Modern with cards that are meant to be played in Commander. Whenever you look at any set, I could probably pick out 5 cards that were clearly designed with Commander in mind, and I think you're going to be able to take at least one of those 5 cards that I could point out, and it will be broken in Modern, even if it wasn't the intended purpose. Either way, guys, those are some of my predictions for Modern Horizons 2, but I want to know what your guys' are. Do you have any predictions for what's coming up? If you're watching this after the fact, which ones did I get right? Let me know all that in the comments down below. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date with everything Magic, and see more videos like this. I will see you in the next one.